Hi guys, welcome back to my Experienced Teacher Through Action Research vlog. In this one I'm going to talk about the first lesson back this term where we've started the testing phase. So the first lesson back we did a pre-test, so that wasn't particularly interesting, and they did a quiz on their dispositions towards science and education in general, as well as how they feel about themselves. Now in our second lesson I actually introduced the concept of self-paced mastery to the students. I'd previously emailed a letter home to, or emailed an email I suppose, home to the parents so that they have an idea of what we're doing in class and how they can help their children. But it wasn't until the second lesson that I explained it to the kids. So we'd already done the learning journey on the website in the previous topic, so now it was about explaining the self-paced mastery to them. Now the way that I did this is through showing them a couple of tables. So this is a table here I made, or a graph rather, looking at the pre-test to post-test, and this isn't a student to student base, this is just the class results put in order for each of them, showing that there is, in the class, you can actually look at that and say, hey, we've learnt something as a class. Now, if we were to look at the individual results, on the other hand, which is this one here, we can see that some students worked really, really well, or more so the style of teaching worked really well for them, and they got quite a bit of growth here, while others didn't get much growth. And if we put that onto a percentage level, so based on that pre-test, we're looking at a percentage, or the compounded growth of how much they increased. So 2/3 of the class did more than twice as well on the second assessment, second post-test. To the pre-test, but there's some that didn't. So we talked about why it could be that these students, that third of students, weren't able to show the growth that other students did. And that's when we brought into the idea of people learning at different speeds, which was good that I could build on my flipped classroom, because when we introduce the flipped classroom, we talk about kids reading, writing, understanding, so that sort of note-taking in class at different speeds. Hence, having a video means we can slow it down for that. So this is then the extension of that we can self-pace in the classroom, how we want to this for the speed that students actually learn at. I then showed them this, which is just the average marks of a couple of the mastery tests that we did in the first topic. Now you can see here that 2 out of these, the average was less than 50%. So I talked about that I knew that half of the class didn't understand it, but I moved on anyway because I gave them feedback, and then I moved on because of the way that the speed that the class has to move in a crowded curriculum. So this one actually quite surprised them that there was this sort of lack of mastery. So we talked about the benefits of gaining mastery before moving on, and how that would work in the classroom. The other thing we did in this lesson is talk about our classroom routines, expectations, and management if the students don't reach those expectations. Now the way I did this is introducing each of these concepts to the students and giving an example of, for example, what do we mean by routines? Then I got them to discuss in their groups, their table groups, what routines they think would work in this sort of setting, and then write it on post-it notes. I then got the post-it notes and placed them up on the window, and I've grouped them by theme. So there was a lot of things, so the big things that came out of it, a lot of students actually brought up the same things, was the routine in staying on task, so working in class, and goal setting. So that's good, because that's what I think is going to be the challenge for students in this sort of a little bit more unstructured way of delivering the class. We then talked about expectations, and that came on from the routines. The expectations were make sure that you have goals set, make sure that you know what you're doing, don't stuff around, stuff like this, as well as be safe. So we talked about these expectations, grouped them, and I read them out to the class and explained sort of the groups. And I've left these up on the windows. Hopefully the post-it notes will stay sticky, but throughout the topic, so that I can, if we have any problems with these, refer back to them. Now, I haven't, in the 2 lessons since this, I haven't had any behavior problems. Everyone's been working really well. This could be just that it's new and it's different, or it could be that it's a really positive thing. We'll see how we go. Time will tell on that one. The other one we looked at was behavior management. So what happens if people don't reach these expectations? Now, this is a big one. In the classroom that we've already got the gamification. We use Classcraft, the online server that has all these things in it. So what I did is I brought up the different behaviors, and we discussed whether these behaviors were fair and whether they're suitable for this style of classroom, or whether they needed to be changed. Now, a few of them they thought needed to be changed. In particular, which one was it? The wasting class time. They thought that and doing that, because it's so easy to get off topic, that sort of should be a small little nudge to get them back on track if they get distracted. One thing that they did talk about was the inappropriate use of text. So this is if they're, for example, on their phone, on their iPad, doing the wrong thing. And they thought that this was unfair in how big it was. Unfortunately, the school has a policy on text, so I had to sort of explain to them, but yeah, I understand, but the school has a policy, and that's why that needs to stay in there. So there was some discussion on this, but not... but the kids didn't have the final say in what happens for behavior. And to tell you the truth, there wasn't too much of the students going, oh, we'll make that 0. Oh, don't worry about that, and don't worry about that. Most of the discussion was on track and looking for to build an environment where everyone can learn to their full potential. So that's a couple of reflections on those first 2 lessons and how I organised those. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.